Welcome everyone to the Betty Eats podcast. I'm so happy to have you here with us. Today we have a very special guest. Stephanie Hansen is joining us. I'd love for you to introduce yourself and tell everybody a little bit about you and what you do.
Sure. So I have multiple jobs, like I think a lot of people do in the food side hustle, right? I
Yeah.
think my number one job is probably a broadcaster. I have a radio show that I've had for 20 years about food in Minneapolis called The Weekly Dish. I also have a podcast called Dishing with Stephanie's Dish, and I have a TV show that airs in 92 markets that's filmed in the Twin Cities in Minneapolis called Taste Buds with Stephanie. And all of
Wow.
these things intersect in the broadcast space of helping people tell their food stories and being a
I
part
love
of that
that.
food journey. And then about 5 years ago, I wrote a cookbook. I've written two. The True North Cabin Cookbook, Volume 1 is May through September recipes. Volume 2 is October through April recipes. So it goes by month. And then this just last month, my husband and I debuted a fiction book that is about a cookbook writer
Wow.
from Minnesota who finds her family in Croatia, and it's a romance. It's called The Moon Tavern, a culinary love story with recipes, and each chapter has a recipe in it.
Wow.
So that's
I love
probably
that.
something that I'm most excited about recently because I've
Wow.
discovered that I see the world through food. Just like everything. I I realize, you know how like they say that babies see the world through like their mouth
Mm.
and they're very tactile. Like I see the world through snacks and through food.
I love that. And I can relate to that. I mean, you think about, even traveling sometimes or being with people, you do remember tastes and flavors and, oh, remember that dish. And that can really take you back. So
That was part of
interesting.
my husband and I are travelers and
Mm.
sailors, and we
Oh,
sailed a
wow.
lot to Croatia.
Oh, my
And
goodness.
when we talked about putting together the Moon Tavern book and
Mm.
talked about making that book a reality, we really,
Mm.
he was like thinking about it from a fiction standpoint because he's a fiction writer. And I was
Mm.
like, no, it's got to have recipes because if you think about all the traveling we did and the sailing, and we'd pull up to an island and you could smell the lavender literally from the
Oh,
boat as you're sailing to
wow.
that port. I was like, there has to be this feeling of
Mm.
food and recipes in there because it's sort of then like that eat, pray, love vibe.
And I think that too, that's a good point. I think sometimes when you do go to a place, that's something that you do notice right away, that sensory of just the smell, whether it's lavender or food, or each place has its kind of distinctive scent. So,
And charms.
yes. Oh my goodness. Well, you have done so many different things, but as you said, they're all related to food. How did you even get started in this food space? Is this something that you've always wanted to do, or take us on your take us on your
Sure.
path?
Um, I always wanted to be a storyteller. I wanted to be a
Oh.
broadcaster.
Mm,
I was a salesperson
mm,
and I was in radio sales. And part of the thing about radio sales was that you had to paint the picture of what you were selling because really what you were selling was air or
mm,
airtime, but what you
mhm.
were delivering was an audience that people couldn't really see or feel. So I got
Right.
really good at describing how this air was going to deliver on this marketing message for the people. And that
Oh.
became sort of a love of storytelling and helping people craft stories and marketing messages.
Mm.
And I had some friends that were sort of goofy ladies, and they developed they called them nipple enhancers. They were these fake nipples that you put in your t-shirt so that you were permanently erect, and it was to attract attention.
Oh my
And
gosh.
these two women had been my lifelong friends, and they were just a hoot. And I worked at a radio station, and they were hiring for a morning drive personality for a women's talk station. And I knew my two friends needed to be the hosts, like, so I
Wow.
recommended them, and they ended up getting the job. And they had me do entertainment reporting, and before long I was also on the air. I had a radio show,
Oh
and
my goodness.
I did that for a year and a half before they fired my partner, which is always sad when that happens.
Hmm.
And they replaced me, but they said, "We don't really want to fire you. We just don't know what to do with you." And at this point, I also was building a career and a business with my husband. We had a direct mail company.
Hmm.
And I said, "Hey, how about I just have a food show on Saturdays? I love food. The Food Network's a really big deal." And
Hmm.
they said, "Well, we just did that with this guy named Andrew Zimmern, and the show didn't do very well. So, like, how are you going to make it different?"
What?
And I was like, I said, "Well, maybe I'll just talk about like regular food, not about like cows' intestines and sort of the weird stuff. I'll just talk about like being a home cook." And that appealed to them. They liked that idea. So I
Hmm.
ended up getting a radio show, and that was sort of the start of it. And I've had the radio show 20 years, and over the
Wow.
course of that time, I've really I'm the eater, right? I'm not a trained chef. I'm just
Hmm.
a home cook. I'm not even a college graduate. So I really leaned into just being the eater. And I think there's a real perspective of that that's different than
Yeah.
an owner or a chef. You're looking for different things. You want delivery of different things. You might see a recipe a
Right.
different way. And that
Hmm.
really became
Yeah.
something that I liked doing. And I knew if I wanted to be taken seriously in the space that eventually I would need to write a cookbook. So that was why I started the books. And then the TV show just literally like came out of absolutely nowhere. I was doing TV segments on a friend's TV show that they had in Minneapolis, and we were just funny, and people liked them, and they were like, "Could you do a YouTube show in your house?" I was like, "Yeah, I think I could." So we started doing that, and then they wanted to expand the show to 24 minutes, and I was like, "Well, just watching me cook in my house for 24 minutes is too long. We have to go and have some adventure of some sort." So we started adventuring out into the Twin Cities community and bringing some skill or learning back into the kitchen.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that became Taste Buds. And the first
Uh,
year we did, I think, 18 episodes. The second year we did 22. And now we're going into our third season of syndication, and we're planning 40. So
wow.
yeah, it's a
Wow.
lot more episodes, but it's all sort of holistic how it all came together.
Yeah, that really is. That really
Hmm.
is. It's kind of one thing led to another and just doors opening and it sounded, Stephanie, this sounds like you've had fun the whole time, you know?
Yes, I do have fun. I am a cancer survivor. I was
Oh,
during my early
mm,
radio career. I've been cancer
mm,
free now 15 years,
oh,
and I
yay.
was stage 3, so it was a
Oh,
lot all at once. And
mm,
while I don't wish that on anybody, having
mm,
cancer
mm,
as a younger person really propels
mm,
you into life in a way that is intentional and meaningful because you're sort of
yeah,
grateful that that's been your experience.
right.
So that's sort of the silver lining of what could have
Mm,
been a really tragic situation. It's just,
right.
I have opened every door that has been in front of me and figured it out along the way. And,
Mm,
not everything's worked and not everything's been amazing. But for the most
right.
part, I've really had a fun career that I really enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like it. You know, I just read something recently that it kind of reminds me of this. I want to say it was Warren Buffett or somebody like that who said that when you get hard news like a cancer diagnosis, or he had a different, his was less severe. It was like a flat tire. And he said,
Yeah,
think of the three good things. He says, well, good thing I have a car, good thing my phone is charged, good thing I've got AAA, or whatever the three good things were. And it was just kind of like this shift in perspective of gratitude and thankfulness. And it kind of sounds like you have a similar type of mindset of looking at the good things and just having that perspective of like
Yeah,
gratefulness and what can I do to make this great? So,
I think it's really easy, and certainly I do this. Like I have horizontal days where, you pull the covers
mm,
up over your head and you just need to recharge or cry it out or whatever it is you need to
yeah.
do. But for the most part, I think people are good and having good
Mm,
energy and trying to come from a place of abundance and help others and be sincere has always
yeah.
steered me in the right direction.
Mm, hmm. Yeah, it sounds like it. And it sounds like you've had a blast. So that's
Well, my
that's
latest
part of it.
thing, Betty, was not so fun, but it ended up to be okay.
Oh,
I just got back literally yesterday from filming an episode of 25 Words or Less, the game show with Meredith Vieira.
oh my gosh. Okay.
And it was a crazy, like, the same production company that produces Taste Buds produces her show. So they were like, yeah, come be a celebrity host. And I was like, okay. And then I realized like I'm terrible at the game. I'm terrible at thinking on my feet. You have 5 words that you have to get your partner to say in less than a minute. And
Oh
you
my
can't
gosh.
use your hands, you can't use sounds. All you can say is words. And
Oh,
I was like, oh, this is just going to be a disaster and so humbling. But it was really putting myself out there and I was
yeah.
terrified, but it ended up to be okay. But as I was flying back, I was thinking, what am I doing? Like, why did I even think I would want to be good at that? Or why would I do it? But I did it.
But you did it, and you never know what'll come from that. So,
No. And someone said, just think of it as your audition on the national stage.
oh, very good. I like that. I like that. Oh my goodness. Well, now, have you always lived in the Midwest? Have you always kind of lived in that area or?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I lived in Minneapolis. We have
Mm,
Twin Cities, so I've lived in both, which is
okay.
unusual. Most people that live in St. Paul for 20 years, like I did, don't cross
Mm.
over.
Oh,
But I
really?
made the
Okay.
reverse switch. I did live in Baltimore for a couple of years and worked at a nightclub out
Mm,
there.
mm,
It was pretty funny. So I have a love of Baltimore and the East Coast.
mm. Well, it sounds like you have really highlighted and connected with people, though, in your local community when, bringing them on your show to talk about what it is that they're doing or share a skill. So that was kind of, I was
I
curious
don't,
about that.
yeah, it's the Midwest is really having a moment for
Mm,
lots of reasons. One is
mm-hmm.
we have always been sort of perceived as flyover country in the food space.
Oh,
If it's happening
yes.
on the West Coast or it's happening on the East Coast, then it's
Right.
happening.
Yeah.
We've had an enormous amount of food development here from immigrant populations. We have one of the
Mm,
largest Somali populations, East Africans. We have a very
right.
large Hmong population. We've always had
Mm,
a strong Vietnamese population, Chinese
mm,
population, and rightly or wrongly, in this latest moment, we had what was called Operation Metro Surge.
mm,
And what happened is the administration sent 4,000 immigration agents to our cities. And
mm-hmm.
beginning right
Right.
around Christmas time, there were immigration enforcement laws that were happening to round up people in our food community, both
Mm,
people that were supposed illegal immigrants and also people that were American citizens.
mm,
And in that time frame, two people were murdered, people were taken to the
mm,
streets, a lot of our restaurants were closed. It was a
mm-hmm.
really damaging time for the hospitality industry.
Right.
And we're just coming out of that, and Minneapolis is getting recognized as a place that has a super diverse community, number one, but
Mm,
also number two, that people really came out and stood up for their neighbors in hard times. There
mm,
were endless amounts of stories of people, including a bunch of friends of mine, that were feeding families that were not leaving their home. They hadn't left their home in 120 days.
mm.
So bringing food to
Wow.
them, kids were getting schooled online, taking people to doctor's appointments, driving them, because a lot of these incidences would happen when people were driving their cars. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it was just a super crazy time
Mm,
that we just got through it by supporting our neighbors. Tons of mutual aid happened. It was
right.
just, it's hard to even look back on that. And so for
Yeah.
me, it's wonderful to help shine the light and tell the stories about some of the hardest working members of our population that we have. You know, my
Mm,
friend Tammy Wong from Rainbow Chinese, who's been here for 29 years,
right.
telling the story of Tracy Wong, who happens to be her sister, who has a restaurant across the street, who Alex Preddy was murdered basically right in front of her door. And
Mm,
during, you know, tear gas and police and protesters, she was inviting people into her restaurant to get bottles of water, charge their phones. Just so many different stories of residents and immigrant population standing up to help each other. It was a pretty incredible
mm.
time.
Right. Yeah. It kind of goes beyond the food, really. It's now into
Way.
like community and support and, like you said, encouraging each other
And
and helping each other. So,
and
yeah.
farming, you know, we're the breadbasket.
Mm,
So we're
hmm.
growing a lot of the wheat, the corn, the beans, the
Right.
soybeans. We also have very large cattle, pig farms,
Mm,
turkey. We're the number one producer of turkeys, and poultry is on the rise as people get more
mm,
value
yeah.
conscious.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of that labor has come from our immigrant friends and communities. And
Mm,
farming is not far away from any restaurant, and the needs of farmers, the needs of the restaurateur. It's been a really
hmm.
very interesting time to be in the food space here the last 20 years.
Something that is so interesting too is that I was talking to one of the other guests that I had on the podcast, Steve Sabaker, and he's in California, like I am, Southern California, and he talks a lot about regenerative farming. And he just had an article recently about um, alt meat. Who
I
ever
read it.
knew there was going to be such a thing? Yes, very interesting questions that he poses and good things to think about. I think it is so important to kind of bring these things up and to think about them. And, uh, it's to process out loud, I guess, is really kind of a little bit about what he talked about. So I do
We have an
appreciate
episode
that.
coming up
Oh,
where
do
we're going to be
you?
talking to a local company here. It's Herbivorous Butcher, and they
Mm,
make plant-based meats. And then
mm-hmm,
they have a restaurant where they serve those meats. And
mm.
then we're going to be talking to, there's a grain here that's grown locally that's just on the cusp of kind of getting bigger called kernza. It's
Oh,
sustainable perennial grain
oh,
that
uh-huh.
kind of tastes like a nuttier farro. It's a
Mm-hmm.
little more like a cross between almost like a wheat berry and farro, but it's something
Okay.
that we're seeing that's able to make liquor, that's able to
Mm,
be used as a grain, that's able to be milled and used as different kinds of flour. And it's
wow.
really good, it's really regenerative and healthy for the soil.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm
Yeah.
excited about that, something that came out of the Midwest. They grew it, they
Yeah.
invented it here and then worked in a partnership with Kansas City State University.
Oh, interesting. Now, so do you feel like all of these things that we just talked about kind of play into your role as a recipe developer or just food writer? How do those things kind of inspire you for that?
It's funny, you know, we don't have the abundant fresh food
Mm,
like you would on certainly on the West Coast.
mm,
We're more, our climate is more akin to what you'd see in like a Syracuse, New York. We
mm-hmm.
get real cold in the winter and then we can get hot in the summer, but not blazing hot like obviously down in the West. I
Right.
feel like a lot of our the my recipe point of view in particular has more to
Mm-hmm.
do with sort of our heritage,
Hmm.
cheese, dairy,
Yeah.
grain. Um, using the fruits and vegetables, apples, cranberries. I'm a huge rhubarb fan.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
I didn't realize that people don't know about rhubarb all over.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
zone four crop. Basically, you can maybe push it to zone five.
Hmm.
Um, but it's a plant that you don't eat the leaves, but you eat the stalks, and they're kind of bright red, and they are very bitter. But when mixed with sugar, they just create this lovely, bitter, yummy, delicious, tart flavor.
Right. Yes. We do get it out here every once in a while, and it usually goes into a pie.
Hmm.
But yeah, and that is so interesting that you say that. I find that I am super interested, and I think a lot of people are, into more regional cuisine. I was talking to somebody recently from Louisiana, and she was just telling me some things about, yes, about roux, but other things that are very particular to Louisiana. And I thought, my goodness, we've kind of forgotten about how we have all these pockets of regional cuisine, different original, immigrants from 200 years ago, plus the kind of overlay of recent immigrants and how that all kind of plays together. And it's so interesting to me to see all the variances in that. And that kind of sounds a little bit like what you're talking about of what's grown here plus who is making it. So,
Yeah, and I mean, we're the home of Sean Sherman and the movement of Native American cuisine, which
right,
really is the oldest cuisine, right?
right.
And their restaurant here, and they're reinventing it into a new location.
Mm,
But his cookbooks, he has two of them, really take only indigenous ingredients that would be found in these communities of the Native American communities as they were back
mm,
then, and
right.
makes them into meals and things that you would see today.
Mm,
That's such a it's such an amazing perspective to see, like something like a hazelnut, for instance,
mm-hmm,
that really was an indigenous crop in Minnesota, that
mm,
was all the way back to the original farmers of the land, right? The Indians, the Native Americans.
mm,
So I feel like I do have a real, like, feeling about who is in the food space here. And then it's
mm-hmm,
also so amazing because you see the Hmong community that are here. We have
mm,
60,000 people that have immigrated here from the Hmong community, and
mm-hmm.
many of them are farmers, but they're farming
Oh,
things
interesting.
that aren't indigenous to here, and creating unique hybrids of mustard greens and unique
Mm-hmm.
vegetables that are from seeds that they brought over with them, but then they're cultivating
Oh,
them with other things that we have, and making like
mm,
whole strains of vegetables that meet the needs of their flavor palettes for a green
mm-hmm,
that's more bitter, but not an arugula.
mm-hmm.
It's honestly, I could geek out about food. It's very interesting. Even like strains of corn, strains of beans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is so interesting. I know that I saw a movie recently. I had actually featured it in one of my posts called Minari, which is from a few years ago, and it's about a Korean family who moves to the southeast in the United States, and they were growing vegetables that were at the time in the 80s hard to find at the local grocery
Mhm.
store, but the Korean community wanted these things like, daikon radish
Sure.
um, and then this particular green called minari, and it's a kind of a bitter green that's used. And so that's so interesting that that kind of happens in these different pockets and of settlements and
Yeah,
where people immigrate. So,
and
yeah.
you're looking at a lot of these immigrant chefs, they're under 40
Mm,
years old.
yeah,
So they are
yeah.
now taking the influences of their parents and then mixing them with things they loved, like Doritos or Spam, right? Like Ann Kim and I did an episode on Taste Buds where we made fried rice with Spam, and she couldn't believe her family ended up living in the place where Spam was made in Austin, Minnesota.
Oh, wow.
And I love, like, oh, we get into these arguments about, the history of food and cultural appropriation of food,
Oh,
because
yeah,
it can be a slippery topic to have. I'm obviously a
sure.
middle-aged white lady, so I don't really have a leg to stand on in the race. However, when you look at cultures and you travel and you see that almost every culture has a handheld bread vessel, whether
Yeah,
that's a bun, whether that's a
yeah.
tortilla, whether
Oh,
that's a
yeah.
steamed or wonton wrapper or rice paper, or, it's pretty obvious that the more exposure you get to some of these things and then you marry your own creativity and your own influences, it's going to be a
Yeah.
mashup of sorts, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I think I am here for the mashup. I love
Same, same.
I
I feel
love the
like if you
mashup.
can be inspired by anyone's culture and take the time to understand it, I feel
Mm.
like that's honoring it in a way.
Well, and I think too, I actually talked a little bit about this with someone recently that, especially for second generation, first generation, there's still a lot of ties to the old country. My mom was first generation Korean. Um, I'm second generation, so yes, I have this knowledge, and yes, I've been there, but like you talked about, yeah, I'm going to mix things together that are kind of Korean-ish, but not necessarily very traditional. And I think that's what makes it fun. But I don't know. Sometimes people get mad about that.
Hmm. There's a
It's
new
not.
cookbook called Spanglish.
Oh
That's
yes,
a mashup. And then one of
yeah.
my favorite books I read last summer, Crying in the H Mart.
Oh yes, yes, yeah,
So good, fiction or
yes,
not fiction, nonfiction, based on a
yeah,
woman who lost her mother and was
yeah,
trying to find her way back through the foods that her mom cooked. That
yeah.
was kind of the story of, my first book. I knew I wanted
Mm,
to write about a cabin in this place, but I wanted to also,
yeah.
like, honor the heritage of some of the things that my mom used to cook because my mom died
Mm.
of breast cancer. Um,
Oh,
and I was so
sorry.
missing her and her food.
Yeah, yeah. And that is such a connection too, a lot of
Hmm.
times, with our uh, family, but then also our heritage and, just things that we grew up with. That is a way of honoring that too. So, yeah, I love that.
It's cool to
Yeah.
read. This is one of the things I love about Substack.
Mm.
Like before, I would get exposed to a food writer through a book, maybe through a television show, or maybe,
Mm.
someone through a restaurant. With Substack,
Right.
like I can really get immersed in the way that you see Californian food, or the way
Mm.
that someone sees food on the seashore in Portland, in a
Yeah.
way that it is so much closer to the living and the embodiment of the people that live there, because it isn't
Mm.
just this microcosm of this one moment of this book or
Right.
this restaurant chef's total point of view. I love
Mm.
how democratic Substack
Mm.
is in the food world and how much you can find there.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And I think it's fun too we were talking about kind of hyper local. I was talking to Georgia Friedman. She's up in
Uh-huh.
Northern California, and we were kind of joking around about California cuisine and what does that really mean. And yes, there are certain hallmarks of that, but it was like, yep, Southern California is its own different microcosm
For
to
sure.
San Francisco and Napa and just that whole Northern California food scene. Very, very different. And it's fun. I think it's really fun to see just the different little nuances. But that's happening in every single state. I think that people forget that about their own state. And like you were talking about, even I didn't know that about the Twin Cities, that people usually don't make that crossover. So it's the little things like that, and that we can relate to, and then also think, oh, that's an interesting tidbit of information.
Yeah, I was so aghast. We got the Michelin star is finally coming to the Midwest, and it's coming to
Oh,
Minneapolis, but not St.
mm,
Paul. And
oh,
these cities are literally connected. It's like they're twins. It's like they cut off half the twin and they're only going to award
Oh.
stars on the Minneapolis side. It's so crazy.
Oh my goodness, that's funny. Well, you have done so many different things, obviously, and have experience in so many different areas of the food world. Is there something that you feel like, you know what, right now I am so proud of XYZ? What would that be?
Well, I'm enormously proud of the television show just because
Mm,
it was a skill set and a piece of this broadcast story that I didn't see coming. And, we're hearing
mm,
so much about how hard television is, how nobody's buying
right.
shows, and all the cooking shows have become competition shows,
Oh, yes. Yeah.
so that we're still like out there and telling stories and being able to come to my house and cook some food feels great. Also,
Yeah.
I think in the age of AI and what that potentially is doing to blogs and original
Hmm.
content and original recipe development, we're on the
Hmm.
beginning cusp of what that's going to look like.
Right.
You know, there's so many independent creators out here, and last I checked, none of us are really getting rich, right? There's maybe the 1%, and then there's the rest of us.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm proud to be able to continue to tell the stories of the Midwest. And,
Yeah.
I guess National Geographic voted the Midwest the top 15 food cities in the world.
Wow.
We had a
Wow.
number of chefs that were recognized in the James Beard Award Foundation.
Mm.
We have Diane's Place, which I just had lunch at today. She was voted top 50 restaurants in the world. So that
Wow.
some of these people who've been our friends for a long time are finally getting recognized just feels amazing.
Mm.
I'm proud of that.
Hmm.
I'm proud of them.
Yeah.
I'm proud of
Yeah.
her. We were just talking and I said something and she said, "Yeah, neither of us went to college and look at us now." And we laughed.
That's so great.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of AI, there's a can of worms, but you and I both know, I think most listeners know, there is a lot of slop. Let's call it for what it is. A lot of untested recipes floating around, viral things that are not great. What is your approach to that? I mean, we know it's here, but how do you differentiate yourself from AI recipes? And also, what do you look for if you think, oh, I really want a recipe for such and such? What are some things that you look for when you are surfing the internet?
A couple things. One, I think for those of us that have been in this space for a while, there's heritage and there's longevity. So
Mm,
that always is a signal to me that if someone's been doing this for a while, they must be doing it kind of right.
mm,
Um, I look for recipes that I guess I look at the process and the way that the recipe is written, and I can
mm-hmm,
usually tell.
mm-hmm.
But I think that's going to go away with time. I think AI is just going to get better and better. I'm also one, and this is, I guess, I really spend time thinking about this. Like right now, they're dubbing my voice in different languages to use for taste buds around the world. They're going to
Oh,
sell the
wow.
show, and once I record a show, it's not mine anymore. So
Mm,
they're going to
mm-hmm,
just make this thing and it's going to go. I just feel like if we continue to put our human spin on things, that's
mm,
probably going to keep it in some relevance. And whether
mm-hmm,
that's connecting the recipe to memory, whether that's rooting it in place,
mm.
whether that's rooting it in ingredients,
Right.
um, or or just technique. Like I'm not writing recipes that require anything unique on the technical front, right? Maybe
Mm,
making pie dough is probably my biggest skill that is hard, if there is such a thing. Um, yeah, I don't know how this is all going to shake out, but I feel
mm-hmm,
like at the end of the day, people are still going to want good recipes that work with flavor.
mm-hmm,
And whether they get that from a bot or whether they get that from a book, in some ways, we're
mm,
seeing the younger generations going to less tech because they're
mm-hmm.
less just they're less trustful of it. So maybe the
Yes.
cookbooks will have more relevance over time.
Right. Yeah, that's a good thought. Right when you said about, you were talking about memory, it kind of made me think about that one scene in that old movie, Blade Runner. This is back from the 80s, the old Harrison Ford, Sean Young movie. And there was a scene in it where she was talking about her childhood, and it had something to do with spiders. I don't quite remember the whole thing, but she was horrified to know that that wasn't really a memory. It was just implanted in her brain.
Hmm.
And it kind of makes me think about that too, with, like you said, AI is getting better, but technically it doesn't have those memories and experiences. It still can't taste or smell. And that is something that, as you know, as humans, that we still have that advantage. So,
I never thought about that, but that is a really huge difference because if you're a machine and you can teach a machine to machine, but can you not, you can't teach a machine to smell. You
mm-hmm.
can't, that's interesting. I never thought, or to taste. How does a machine know what
Mm,
something tastes like?
yeah, that
Interesting.
still has
Yeah.
to go off of us. So,
I just hope that the world doesn't end up being like all of us in little carts with giant soda pops, like the movie Wall-E, where we're too lazy, we're too out of shape, and we're too bored with life. So we just move around like dead zone.
that's hilarious. I'm gonna have to
I
go
don't
back and
want that
rewatch
world.
that. Yeah,
Oh,
no,
it's
me either.
terrifying.
That's so great. I can see you like movies too.
Yes, I do. My daughter is a movie major or film major, and I was an English
Ish.
major. We like movies and books.
Oh, fun. That's so fun. Well, when I was in college, that was my minor, was in film.
Oh,
And so I love watching. And yeah, I don't know if your daughter gets this, but a lot of times I would sit down and watch a movie with either my family or friends, and I wanted to talk about, oh, the director this, and what did you think of that scene? And they're like, can we just watch the movie?
what was the movie? Is it called Begonia with
Oh,
Emma Stone? And
oh,
the
I
red-haired
haven't
guy,
seen
his
that.
name's, oh, you have to see it. When I was
Okay,
watching that movie with my daughter, it's a futuristic movie. And it's not
okay.
like the world's best movie, but it's super inventive and very creative. And when I was
Mm,
watching it with my daughter, she was seeing things based on the styling of the shots
mm,
that
mm.
I was completely just over my head, and it was fascinating to watch the movie with her. So you got to watch it. You'll like it.
I will. Yes, I have. I've seen. I want to say I've seen the trailer. So now that really makes me want to watch that. So
Yeah, it's very creative. It's very interesting.
that's so fun. Well, speaking of recipes, I know that you have a tried and true recipe that you are going to be sharing with listeners. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. Well, I'm going to give you two because one is
Okay.
seasonal and
Okay.
like I don't even know. Can you get rhubarb in California? I don't
Yeah,
know.
I do see it at the grocery store. I do.
I have a rhubarb custard bar that is very
Mm,
easy to make. It's a press-in
mm,
shortbread crust, and then
mm,
you pour chopped rhubarb or put chopped rhubarb over the pan, and then you pour the custard on top. And
mm.
when you bake it, that rhubarb softens up and it creates an ooey gooey custard layer while you've got that buttery shortbread on the bottom. And then you
Wow.
cut it into what we call in the Midwest bars. So you have your rhubarb bars. But that recipe, no matter who I give that recipe to, it was in the
Mm.
volume 1 book and it's on stephaniesdish.com. People just go crazy for it. So
Oh,
that's
well.
one. I
Okay.
would say my other recipe that I really make every year and I feel proud of is my Swedish meatballs.
Oh, I
There
have not had
is,
that in forever.
oh,
Okay.
it's delicious. Yeah. So we make a grind with beef, pork, and veal, and
Mm.
then some breadcrumbs and some seasonings, including
Hmm.
cardamom. And then you make a
Oh.
pan gravy and it has a little sour cream in it. So it's a lighter more of a taupe gravy than like a dark,
Mm.
rich brown beef gravy. And then
Mm-hmm.
you serve that over egg noodles or rice or potatoes.
Mm. That
And
sounds
we make that for
delicious.
Christmas Eve every year. That's like a big, and I love meatballs. I like Southern meatballs. I like Middle Eastern meatballs. I love meatballs.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Swedish
Yeah.
meatballs are where it's at.
That sounds delicious. My family loves meatballs too, so I will for
Yeah,
sure
they're
be
so
making that.
versatile.
Well, as we wind down, where is the best place for people to get in touch with you online?
Yeah. StephaniesDish.com is my website. Stephanie's Dish is my handle on everything. Taste Buds with Stephanie is on YouTube. You can watch all the shows, even if you don't get it
Okay.
on your local Fox station.
Oh,
The
nice.
recipes for the show are all at stephaniesdish.com too. I do have the intellectual property for those. So that's a little bit of a
Nice.
disconnect, but with books and everything, I just needed to keep that piece of it. So
Yeah.
watch the shows, go to stephaniesdish.com to get any of the recipes, and
Mm-hmm.
all my book information is there too.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're looking for a good romance, the Moon Tavern is getting really good reviews. People are really loving it, and it's a really sweet story.
That sounds wonderful. Any book that includes recipes, I
I
am
know.
usually a fan of. So
Yeah, me
I'm
too.
excited to get that. Yeah, I will put links to all of that in the show notes
Thank
as
you.
well. Yeah, thank you so much, Stephanie, for coming on today and just sharing about your life, what you're doing, and just thank you so much.